Viewer discretion is advised. What follows is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim courtroom testimony from the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. As reported by Inner City Press, no one expected him to appear. The court had already heard from Cassie, Will Smith, Monique, and others. But when Ice Cube walked into that courtroom, everything shifted. A man who built a career on defiance now stood face to face with the very machine he'd once tried to sidestep, and this time, he walked directly into it. Cube didn't come for publicity. He wasn't there for sound bites. He came to testify. And what he brought: documents, recordings, names, connections, stopped the room cold. This wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was about something larger, an industry, a concealed ecosystem of power, coercion, and exploitation protected by the same elite faces the world is told to idolize. The whispers around Jamie Foxx, Oprah Winfrey, Quincy Jones, they suddenly had a voice behind them. That voice was Ice Cube. It was supposed to be another routine day. Cameras loitered outside. Reporters sorted notes, and Diddy's legal team fidgeted with their ties, feigning composure, while the walls quietly cracked around them. Then the doors opened and walked Cube. No entourage, no statement, just a manila folder and a dead stare, moving like someone who had waited decades for this exact moment. The murmurs started immediately. Jurors shifted upright. Even the judge leaned back like he wasn't sure what was about to unfold. Diddy didn't look up at first, but when he did, the color vanished from his face. "I wasn't subpoenaed," Cube said. "I asked to speak." The judge nodded. There was something in his voice, anchored, deliberate. It didn't sound scripted. It sounded lived, like testimony that had been aging in silence since the golden era of hip-hop. And his opening line hit like a gavel. "Some of y'all forgot I was never in the club." And that's what scared them. Silence. Cube didn't speak as a celebrity. He didn't speak as a businessman. He spoke as a survivor, someone who'd watched the machine devour others, and finally chose to turn around and name it. He began with the club, the one no one names. But everyone in the game knows: the gatekeepers, the tastemakers, the unseen puppeteers. They don't invite you in because they like you, Cube said. They invite you in so they can own you. And when you say no, that's when it starts. He locked eyes with Diddy, who now sat frozen. That's when they hit you with the whispers, the canceled meetings, the hit pieces, the phone calls you never hear, but you feel every ripple, every word landed. Cube had watched it happen, again and again. Artists offer the illusion of power in exchange for obedience. Say yes, and you're labeled visionary. Say no, and you disappear. Then he turned the heat up. Diddy didn't just play the game, Cube said. He hosted it. The judge asked if he needed a break. Cube shook his head. He looked back to the jury. "You want to know why I'm here?" he asked. "Because they tried to break someone I respect. Jamie Foxx." The air changed. Pens stopped moving. Head swiveled. He told the court it started like it always does. Flattery, favors, then the ask. Jamie was rising, too talented to ignore. And that's when they moved in. "They reel you in like family," Cube said. "And if you comply, they call you genius. But if you don't," he let the silence answer. Cube described the infamous basketball parties: no phones, tinted SUVs, unfamiliar guests. It wasn't basketball, he said. It was surveillance, a test to see who followed, who questioned, and who stayed quiet. Jamie never surrendered, smiled, played the game, but never truly gave in. And that's when the smear campaign began. Suddenly he's difficult. Suddenly he's off. Suddenly his health's in question. Cube said the 2023 health scare, not a freak incident. That was a message delivered through medicine. Diddy's parties weren't parties, Cube told them. They were data traps, cameras, archives, evidence you didn't know you were creating. It was all recorded. Once they had it, they kept it. And once they kept it, they used it. That's what Cube told the jury, that Jamie had once called him after a Diddy party. He didn't share the details, but said Jamie was different, unnerved. "Cube," he said, "I can't tell you what I saw, but I can't unsee it either." The courtroom was already on edge. But the next name Cube uttered dropped the temperature. Even lower: Oprah. "It wasn't just Puff," Cube said. "There's layers to this." He explained that during Jamie's meteoric rise right after Ray, before the Oscar buzz, Jamie got a call. Quiet, personal, from Oprah herself. He thought it was a call of congratulations. It wasn't. "You're blowing it," she told him. Cube didn't blink as he recounted it. Oprah didn't offer praise, she offered correction. She said Jamie needed to get back on track, then told him she was taking him to someone who could help. That someone, Quincy Jones. "I don't have to explain who Quincy is," Cube said. "Everybody in this town already knows. Celebrated publicly, feared privately. Oprah took Jamie to Quincy's home. Not for advice, Cube said, but for submission. Jamie later described it as the most surreal night of his life. It didn't feel like healing. Cube said, it felt like training, like he wasn't being supported, he was being conditioned. Jamie never explained what happened in full. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes when he tried to. Cube paused. That was enough. Then Cube leaned in. Oprah called it responsibility. Quincy called it legacy. But what they gave Jamie was neither. It was a leash. After that meeting, Jamie changed. Not out of desire but survival. He told me once, Cube said, Cube, the only way to stay alive in this game is to pretend. And I watched that man pretend for years. He paused again, but not anymore. Without skipping a beat, Cube named the next giant in the room, Quincy Jones. Quincy ain't just a producer, he said. He's a godfather. The courtroom didn't move. Not a cough. Not a breath. Cube looked at the judge respectfully. This ain't gossip, it's truth. And it needs to be on the record. He told the jury that Quincy's name has echoed in hushed voices across the industry for decades, glorified in interviews, but quietly feared behind closed doors. And what made people fear him? That was the part nobody ever says out loud. Cube leaned forward. You don't get as powerful as Quincy without making deals. And I'm not talking about publishing rights. I'm talking about soul trades. The kind of deals that don't come with contracts, just control. He said Jamie's encounter wasn't random, it was arranged. That wasn't mentorship. That was a handoff. Jamie got passed, Cube said, from one handler to the next. The air in the room turned heavy. He told me afterward, Cube, that wasn't advice he gave me. It was instruction. Cube said Quincy wrapped the entire meeting in charm. But Jamie saw through it. It didn't feel like guidance, he said. It felt like processing. And Cube had heard similar stories, other men in the business, other artists. They vanish, rebranded, or broke down quietly and were never seen again. Quincy's method is charm, Cube said. But his message is the same as Puff's, obey or disappear. Then came the darkest part. Cube said he'd seen photos, private ones circulated discreetly over the years. Photos that were never supposed to exist. And Quincy's in them, he said. Smiling, always smiling. But the others, he shook his head. They weren't. Cube told the court he couldn't verify everything he'd seen, but one thing he knew, Quincy ain't just a mentor. He's a middleman. And the ones he answers to, we don't even have names for them yet. Cube stood firm. Let's talk about how they keep people quiet, he said. Because it's not just fear, it's blackmail. Diddy's real power didn't come from his record sales or his bank account, it came from what he stored, footage. Recordings, secrets, decades worth, gathered from house parties, studios, hotels. Jets all cataloged, all filed away. They don't just party with you, Cube said. They tape you. And then they own you. He turned toward the prosecution. You want to know how many stayed silent? He asked. Ask how many got a flash drive with no return address. Ask how many got a blocked number playing audio they didn't remember making. Ask how many careers just vanished after they said no. And Jamie, he wasn't the only one. Cube said he knew of at least 2 other actors, good ones, compromised at Diddy's parties. One of those infamous nights ended with a phone call, another actor, panicked, reaching out to Cube. He said he couldn't remember anything past midnight. Woke up in a hotel room with a contract on the table and photos on his phone that didn't make sense, photos that didn't belong to him. Cube told the jury, once they get you, you're not free. You're theirs. That's why so many play along, why they smile, post, show up to red carpets, do talk shows with a perfect laugh. Because if they don't, the archive opens. He explained that Diddy doesn't make threats himself, he doesn't have to. He built an ecosystem that speaks for him. Publicists, journalists, executives, stylists, people who owe him favors, people who fear the vault. If you pull away, suddenly the blogs turn on you. Suddenly, old accusations reemerge. Rumors resurface. You're unstable. You're difficult. Cube said Jamie lived it. The moment he started stepping back, pulling away, the whispers began. Suddenly, Jamie had health problems. Suddenly, he wasn't reliable. Cube didn't buy it. He wasn't falling apart, he said. He was breaking free. And they don't like it when you run. His voice dropped. He adjusted the mic, looked directly at the jury. The room felt colder now, like the truth had drained the heat out of the air. I went to one, Cube said, only once. Early 2000s. No flyer, no formal invite, just a name, a time, and a car waiting outside his hotel. They called it a networking night. They always do. He arrived at a Beverly Hills mansion. Gate closed behind him. Phones confiscated at the door. Inside. Not a party. It was an operation. Cube described the scene: dim lights, no music, just whispers, security at every hallway. Doors unlabeled, some cracked, others closed tight with sounds behind them that didn't belong. He saw faces, big ones, some dazed, some scared, and then he stopped. I saw someone I admired, he said, one of the biggest names out there, slumped on a couch, eyes wide, and a camera pointed right at him. Cube said he left, didn't say goodbye, didn't ask questions, just walked out and got back in the car. The next day, a call, block number. One sentence: we saw you leave. Nothing ever came of it. But Cube never returned. Because I knew what it was, he said. That wasn't a party. That was a trap. Cube turned toward Diddy. You didn't just ruin lives, he said. You filmed them first. The judge had to pause. The court reporter was trembling. Diddy's attorney leaned in, whispering fast and sharp. But Diddy didn't flinch. He just stared ahead, jaw tight. Because this time, he wasn't holding the camera. By now, the courtroom didn't feel like a courtroom anymore. It felt like something else, a confession, booth, a reckoning. Even Diddy's legal team had stopped objecting. There was nothing left to stop, and Cube still wasn't done. They didn't just try to silence Jamie Foxx, he said. They tried to erase him. In Hollywood, silence isn't suggested, it's enforced, through patterns, through pressure, through precision. When someone slips off the radar, it's not an accident, it's surgical. After Jamie turned away from the parties, the machine turned on. Cube held up a calendar. Meetings, booking confirmations, 2019 through 2021. Then he pointed to a string of cancellations, one after another, all tied to execs connected to Bad Boy, Revolt, or Diddy's web of satellites. Coincidence? Not even close. Cube said. Netflix project stalled, scripts iced, collaborators ghosted. People he'd worked with for years gone. Then came the health scare. Cube's voice softened. He looked down for a moment, then back up. You think a man like Jamie, peak shape, just collapses mid-shoot by chance, and it happens right after he starts talking. He didn't accuse, but the implication rang louder than a shout. I don't know what happened in that hospital, Cube said, but I know fear, and I know retaliation. That wasn't just a health crisis, that was a message. Jamie wasn't punished for what he said, he was punished for what he wouldn't become. A puppet, a spokesman, a brand mascot for a machine built on fear. They made him offers, Cube said, and when he didn't bite, they gave Jamie chances to return, Cube said, offered him roles, handed him redemption arcs in the press. All he had to do was play the game, smile for the cameras, shake the right hands, pretend nothing ever happened. But Jamie wouldn't. That's when they tried to replace him. That's when the clone rumors began. That's when people started questioning whether he was even still alive. That's what they do, Cube said. They dismantle you until even your fans don't know what's real anymore. His voice dipped again, barely above a whisper. That's how they keep their power, not through fear, through erasure. He turned to the jury, who by now were leaning forward, locked in. There's something y'all need to understand, he said. This ain't about music. This ain't even about parties. This is about culture engineering. Cube swept his eyes across the courtroom, landing briefly on the prosecution. They don't just shape what you hear. They shape what you believe, what you fear, what you become. He laid it out. Hollywood is run by them, wasn't an industry. It was a mechanism, a system that weaponizes identity, trauma, rebellion, and sells it back to you in a shiny wrapper labeled entertainment. You think it's art. You think it's expression. It's scripted. Every hit album, every greenlit film, by design. Then came the line that sent a chill through the courtroom. The same people who push prison music, Cube said, own the prison. That, he explained, was what Tupac tried to tell the world before they shut him down. Before he got to political, before he started naming names. Cube testified that Diddy wasn't just a villain, he was a vessel. A face chosen to glamorize the very lifestyle that consumes the people it claims to elevate. And if you don't play along, Cube said, you vanish. No airplay, no promo budget, no label backing. If you rap about real building, real healing, you're corny. You get shelved. He claimed that artists with spiritual or anti-industry messages had their sessions raided, their hard drives wiped, their accounts locked. They didn't want you creative, he said. They wanted you compliant. Then Cube brought it back to the infamous parties, not just scenes of excess, but test sites. They weren't playgrounds, he said. They were proving grounds, rooms where artists were filmed, monitored, profiled. And if you played along, you were protected. But if you resisted, he paused, you were punished. He gave an example: an R&B singer who declined a Bad Boy deal after being invited to one of those events. Within months, She was branded unstable, dropped from her label, blacklisted from award shows. You think that was coincidence? He asked. Nah, that was enforcement. He looked back at the jury and then said the one thing no one else had dared utter throughout the trial. Y'all sitting here trying to figure out what Diddy did. But the question is how many people helped him do it? In that moment, the case stopped being just about Sean Combs. It became something else, a reflection, a reckoning. The judge asked Cube if he had any final words. He nodded, stepped down from the stand, walked to the center of the courtroom, faced Diddy. You built a kingdom out of other people's silence, he said. You called it success, but it was slavery. Diddy didn't move. Pale, locked in place. Cube kept going. You didn't just throw parties. You built prisons, psychological ones, emotional ones. You made people believe they were being celebrated when really, they were being captured. Then Cube turned to the gallery, to the artist, to the kids watching. If you dream of making it in this game, ask yourself who's standing at the gate, who's holding the key, and what are they asking from you before they'll let you in? He took a breath, held it. Then I stayed quiet a long time. I thought it made me safe. But you know what silence really does? He looked at the jury. It makes you a collaborator. He opened the folder he brought, pulled out an old photograph. This was me, 1991, bright-eyed. Thought I could change the game. Thought I could make art without losing my soul. He held up the image, then tore it clean in half. That version of me didn't survive. But this version, he looked around the room. The one standing here today. He ain't scared of none of you. Cube walked back to the stand, placed the folder down, turned to the judge. I don't know what y'all will do with this, but now you know. He faced Diddy one last time. You thought no one would speak, that you had it all locked up. But the door's wide open now. Then he stepped down, walked past the press, past the jury, and just before exiting the courtroom, he turned his head slightly and said, "They didn't kill Jamie. They didn't kill me. They just made us louder." And with that, he left. But what he left behind echoed louder than any verdict.